If some of you were at Mass this morning or last night, you mostly heard most of this, so I hope it goes down well a second time, okay? At least you can endure it. In most of Europe, I think, they don't eat the salad before the meal, especially we gringos do that. I don't know if everyone else does it here, but we usually eat the salad before, sometimes with dinner. But in Europe, they usually eat it at the end of the meal, just the reverse. So I have a question for you. And I'd really prefer this to go to the little ones first, okay? Does your mommy let you eat your dessert before the dinner? Ever? How come? Why? What happens if you eat it before? There it is. He's brilliant. If you eat your dessert before the main course, you may lose your appetite. Where are all the nutritious proteins and all the nutrients? What part of the meal? In the dessert or the main course? Okay, he's smart, that guy. All right. So there's some good sense about that. Now Jesus comes along, and he does something like this. He reminds me of this because he kind of reverses things. Jesus is always talking about the peace he comes to bring us. In fact, the Mass captures the richest meaning of what our relationship with God and with Jesus Christ should be like. He says, come, experience the mercy of God and forgiveness, the love. Let me give you peace. He gives us a meal to eat, his own body and blood. He says, eat and drink, be fed, be nourished. I have come to bring you peace. That's the message of the liturgy. We come here always to be touched by God's goodness and grace and love. And then in this gospel, he says, you think I've come to bring you peace? Forget that. I've come to bring division. So at the first reading, it may sound very strange, this gospel. What's he up to? So I propose to you that Jesus is being like a coach of a football team. In fact, now you're too young for this. Abel, I bet you know. I'm just picking on you because you know this. For double reasons. What is Hell Week? Oh, okay. First week of football. Hell Week. When you go to high school or college, you get out there for Hell Week. And the coach says, you are going to go through hell this week. I'm going to work you. You're going to do push-ups. You're going to run until you're so tired. Then you're going to do it 2 or 3 more times. It's work, 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 work. And then what? More work, right? They do it in boot camps in the military. They do it in police academies. They do it anywhere where somebody has to be really trained. They put them to work. And the reason is this. First of all, if you go from here and you want to go over to here to be winners and to be people who are ready to defend or fight or do whatever they have to do, you have to go through the boot camp, through the Hell Week. This is what gets you from here to here. And everybody here, even though they may not like what they're going to have to do, they know it's necessary to travel through that to get to here. So this speech of Jesus is like he's the coach of a team. He's like the head of boot camp. That's really what it is. And the scriptures are rich with all kinds of different ways of saying things. So even though Jesus always wants us to be filled with his blessings and grace and love and mercy and forgiveness, all of those good things, there is a part of the message that he knows as a spiritual leader that unless we get this, we're not going to get this. It's also the same with learning an instrument, learning some course of material. You have to do the work. You don't go from being uneducated to educated without doing all the work in between. And if you've got skills as a pianist, you don't become a great pianist without lots and lots of work. And so today we see it even lived out in these scriptures. In the first reading, we have the story of Jeremiah. Now, most of the prophets didn't want to be prophet because they knew that there was a hell week. They knew there was a cross. In fact, in the first chapter of Jeremiah, when God is calling him, and by the way, the scriptures are also, again, they use all kinds of techniques for communicating the truth, because I don't think God appeared too many times or actually sent angels that spoke, maybe. But what I think that language is, speaking to a people to get it. God spoke to them. I'm assuming everyone here would say, God has spoken to me many times. Not me, but to each person here. Speaking to us right now. Maybe through my words, or maybe simply through the scriptures, or maybe through our prayer. And if we are open and attentive and seeking and listening and looking and trying to discover it, we will know what God is calling us to do. So the way it's put in the first chapter of Genesis, Jeremiah has God speaking directly to him. He calls him to be a prophet, and he starts with his list of excuses. Oh, no, God, I'm sorry. Sorry, I can't do that. I'm way too young. I'm too young. So God says, well, you will be a prophet, and I will put my words in your mouth, and you will speak my words. You'll be a light to the nations. He said, you will produce what I need you to produce. Well, the very reason he didn't want to do it is in the chapter that we just heard. The people hated it when he came to them and said, you are sinners, turn your life around or you will be destroyed. That is what God is saying to you. So what do? They said, throw him in the cistern, let him sink in the mud and die. So they did. He didn't want that. He did get saved, and the psalm was a beautiful reflection of God saving his prophet, saving us. But all of us sometimes get thrown into the cisterns of life. Not maybe real cistern with real mud, but we're all up to here sometimes sinking in our struggles, our problems. And then in the second reading, Paul is recalling the pathway of Jesus. And he tells us quite clearly that Jesus ends up in glory on the throne of God. But how did he get here? Did he go from birth to glory? No, there was a big middle piece called the cross. And he was rejected, and he went through incredible suffering. And he said he knew he had to do that. In fact, in the gospel, he says, I'm in anguish waiting for my baptism, his baptism being the cross. I'm in anguish waiting for that to come. Hurry up, come. Because Jesus was not afraid to face his cross. He was not afraid to go to that cross. He knew he had to do it. He knew that's what would bring all the message that he had to bring and bring his fulfillment. That's where the glory would come after the cross. And so he says to us, the beginning of that second reading, keep your eyes fixed on Jesus. Fix your eyes on Jesus, because you'll see the meaning of this pathway, traveling through the cross to the glory. Now, in that context, we can understand the gospel. So he says, I didn't come to bring you peace. Yes, eventually. But he says, I didn't come to bring you peace. I came to bring you division. 2 against 3, 3 against 2. Father against son, son against father, mother against daughter, daughter against mother. The only one we can accept is mother-in-law against daughter-in-law, daughter-in-law against mother-in-law. But actually, he's talking about this division. Now, this division isn't struggling through problems and difficulties of life. This is the division that comes when we accept the Word of God. Because if we seriously listen to the Word of God and let it in, then it is going to cause a cross for all of us. And the division is where a family itself hears the Word and it actually divides the family. So I'll give an example. Here's a row. I'm going to make you one family, okay? You come here in one car, you leave in one car because you're all sisters, okay? And even on the way home, unlike most Catholics, you actually talk about the Word on your way home. What did you think of that gospel? Ooh, I don't know. What did you think of Father Perry's words? Well, whatever. So you're going to talk about this message. It will change. It's different for every one of you, all 4 of you. It depends on a lot of things, your age, your experience, the amount of faith that you have, your openness to the Word, or your closedness to the Word. But let me give you one that's a little more a proof of this. Let's take the passage where Jesus says, what I tell you is love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Excuse me, Lord? Huh? Say that again? I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Now, you'll all hear it differently. You'll hear it for all those reasons, but one of the reasons that we hear it differently is if we're open to the Word or not open to it. And there's all kinds of reasons why we open up to the Word and don't open up to it. Perhaps we've gone through some tremendous pain. Perhaps we've recently gone through an experience of total rejection by someone that we loved. And then we hear that gospel, we may not be ready for it. We may say, Jesus, forget it. I'm not going to listen to that word. I can't. In fact, we might even be angry at God because of the experience we've been through. So that word of God could come into this family of 4 sisters on the way home, and one of them says, forget it. I think that word is absolutely impossible, and I'm not going to do anything about it. And another one may say, in their heart or out loud, I believe it totally. Because I've experienced when I've been hurt by somebody I hated for a long time, and I lived miserably. But I discovered it's possible to forgive. And here there is peace, there is goodness and joy. Here is misery, for as long as I decide not to forgive. So depending on where a person is or where this family of 4 sisters, they may hear the word completely differently. And Jesus was a very wise spiritual leader. He knew that the Word of God, the prophetic Word of God, is powerful and power-filled. And when it comes among us, it's going to have an effect. Now, whenever we get a message that is difficult, we only have 2 choices. We either accept it or reject it. We either take it in or we keep it out. Whenever we're hurt by life, there's usually only 2 choices after we get really hurt. We either really notice that we are victim, and along with victimization comes a lot of negative feelings, usually anger and hatred. But when we work through that and we take that cross of pain and go through it and say, no, I will not be a victim. I will figure out how to continue to love through this. This becomes a very grace-filled place. And Jesus, as a very spiritual and very wise spiritual leader, he understood that. Today, he gives us the hard coach talk. You're going to go through hell because it's the truth. Because of life and sometimes because of the word that we are given by God, it's too much. We can't quite take it in. But the promise is if we're willing to go through that cross, accept it, not run from it, say, God, where are you leading me through this? Take up the cross and follow. We can find that place of glory, that place of new life.